The town of Ipswich, nestled quietly by the sea, it was a place of secrets whispered on the wind. The old Crawford house stood on the hill overlooking the town. Locals always spoke of it with a mix of fear and fascination. They said it was a place of sorrow. They said it was haunted. The house had stood empty for years. Its windows were like vacant eyes staring out at the town. Some said they saw lights flickering inside at night. Others heard the mournful strains of a piano. No one dared to approach the house. It stood as a silent monument to a tragic past. The story of the Crawford house was a tale whispered from generation to generation. It was a story of love, loss, and the haunting presence of a soul unable to find peace. The townspeople believed that the house was a vessel. It held the tormented spirit of Margaret Crawford. Margaret Crawford was a beautiful young woman. She was full of life and laughter. She had lived in the grand house on the hill with her family. They were the envy of the town. Their happiness was short-lived. Tragedy struck the Crawford family. A fire swept through the house one night. Margaret's parents and her younger brother perished in the flames. Margaret was the sole survivor. The townspeople pitied her. They whispered about the terrible tragedy, but their pity soon turned to fear. Margaret's behavior became erratic. She was often seen wandering the streets at night, muttering to herself.
They're gone. All gone. Why did they leave me?
Some said that Margaret's sorrow had unhinged her mind. Others whispered that the fire had released something dark and sinister into the house, something that now clung to Margaret. The whispers grew louder. People began to avoid Margaret. They feared her and the house on the hill. Years passed. The whispers about Margaret and the haunted house continued. One stormy night in 1972, two young hikers, Sarah and Tom, found themselves caught in a downpour. Seeking shelter, they stumbled upon the old Crawford house. The wind howled around them. Rain lashed at their faces. The house loomed before them, dark and imposing.
We should go inside, Sarah. It's just a house. We need to get out of this storm.
I don't know, Tom. I've heard stories about this place. It doesn't feel right.
But the storm raged on. They had no other choice. With trepidation, they approached the front door. The door creaked open as if inviting them in. Inside, the house was dark and silent. The air was thick with the smell of decay and something else, something indefinable and unsettling. Sarah and Tom explored the house. They found a room with a fireplace. They decided to wait out the storm there. As Tom tried to light a fire, Sarah wandered over to the window. She peered out into the darkness. The rain continued to beat against the glass. Suddenly Sarah gasped. A face appeared in the window. It was a woman's face, pale and gaunt. Her eyes were wide with a look of unspeakable sadness.
Tom, come here. There's someone out there.
Sarah stumbled back in horror. She called out to Tom. Tom rushed to her side. He looked out the window, but there was no one there.
Sarah, there's no one there. It's just the rain and shadows playing tricks on your mind.
He tried to calm Sarah, assuring her it was just a trick of the light. But Sarah was unconvinced. She had seen the face clearly, and she knew deep down that it was the face of Margaret Crawford. The storm finally subsided. Sarah and Tom left the house. As they made their way back to town, Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The image of the face in the window was seared into her mind.
I just can't stop thinking about it, Tom. That face, it was so real.
In the days that followed, Sarah became withdrawn. She was plagued by nightmares. She lost her appetite and grew thin and pale. Her friends and family became concerned.
I saw a face in the window. It was there, staring at me.
But they dismissed it as exhaustion or the after effects of the storm. They urged her to rest and forget about the old house.
How can I forget? It felt like something was following me, something cold and unseen.
Her health continued to deteriorate. She grew weaker by the day. Concerned about Sarah's rapidly deteriorating health, her family called for a doctor. The doctor examined Sarah. He found no physical ailment. He prescribed her rest and tonics. He suggested that perhaps her condition was psychosomatic. He told her family to monitor her closely.
It's not in my head. I know what I saw.
The doctor's words did little to alleviate the family's fears. Sarah's condition continued to worsen. She refused to eat. She barely slept. She would often wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Her eyes, wide with terror, seemed to stare at something unseen.
The face. It's watching me. Margaret Crawford. She's watching me.
The family was at a loss. They had never believed in ghosts or hauntings, but now, faced with Sarah's inexplicable decline, they began to wonder if there wasn't something more to the stories about the old Crawford house. Section 7. A Town in Fear. News of Sarah's condition spread through the town like wildfire. The story of what she had seen in the window of the old Crawford house reached every corner of Ipswich. Fear gripped the townspeople.
The whispers about Margaret Crawford and the haunted house intensified. Some dismissed Sarah's story as the ramblings of a sick girl, but others, those who had always believed in the legends, felt a chill run down their spines. They knew that Sarah had seen something terrible that night in the house, something that was now draining the life out of her.
The old house on the hill, once a source of morbid fascination, now became a symbol of dread. People avoided even looking at it. They would hurry past the road leading up to the house, their hearts pounding in their chests. The town, once peaceful and quiet, was now shrouded in an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. Section 8. The Shadow Remains. Despite the doctor's best efforts, Sarah's health continued to deteriorate. She grew weaker with each passing day. The nightmares intensified.
She would often cry out in her sleep, begging for forgiveness. For what? No one knew. One chilly morning, Sarah passed away. Her death sent shockwaves through the town. Many believed that Sarah's encounter with the ghostly figure in the window had ultimately led to her demise. They whispered that Margaret Crawford, unable to find peace, had claimed another soul.
The old house on the hill stood silent. It was a stark reminder of the tragedy that had befallen both the Crawford family and Sarah. The townspeople mourned Sarah's passing. They also mourned the loss of their peace of mind, for they knew that as long as the old house remained standing, the shadow of Margaret Crawford would continue to loom over Ipswich. Section 9. Whispers on the Wind. Years have passed since Sarah's untimely demise, but the story of the haunting at the old Crawford house lives on. The house still stands on the hill overlooking Ipswich. It remains abandoned, its windows dark and empty. But some say that on stormy nights, when the wind howls through the eaves, one can still hear the mournful strains of a piano echoing from within. And some still claim to see a pale, gaunt face staring out from the windows. A face filled with unspeakable sadness. The townspeople of Ipswich continue to whisper about Margaret Crawford. They speak of her tragic past. They speak of the souls she has claimed. And they wonder if she will ever find peace. The legend of the haunting at the old Crawford house serves as a chilling reminder that some wounds even time cannot heal. Section 10. The Haunting Legacy. The story of Margaret Crawford is a tragic tale. It is a story of love, loss, and the enduring power of grief. It is a story that continues to haunt the town of Ipswich to this day. The old Crawford house stands as a monument to the town's haunted past. It is a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic of places. The legend of Margaret Crawford serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds us that some secrets are best left buried, and that some wounds never truly heal. The whispers on the wind continue to carry her story. They whisper of her sorrow, they whisper of her rage, they whisper of her unending search for peace, and they serve as a chilling reminder that some stories never truly die. They live on, passed down from generation to generation, ensuring that the legend of the haunting of Margaret Crawford will never be forgotten.